Hi guys, my name's Mayer-Harman. I'm a student of history. I'm a real estate agent, but one of my favorite electives in university was philosophy. And I think that one of the most important things we can understand about our existence is that although history has changed a lot of things, time has allowed us to have technology like this, allowed us to have running water, electricity, AI. The human condition has not changed, right? The biological components of human beings has not changed. Our brains remain pretty much the same. It's just what we put in them is different. So I say all that because it's important that you understand that listening and learning from history is a core and extremely important part of our education. It's an understanding that the mistakes we've made in the past, we're at risk of repeating them if we don't learn from them. And nothing could be more true than the levels and the numbers of atrocities repeated time over and over again across countries and times, irrespective of one another. Humans have some of the most noble intentions, but we can also be very destructive, abusive, and power hungry. And I say all of this because, I've been watching over the last 10 years the role and the rise that Trump has been able to acquire, the rules that he's changed, the customs, the norms, the level of accumulation and destruction of accumulation of power and destruction of dissent. And I was just watching the Nuremberg trials, and I watched a documentary on the trials of Nazis on Netflix. And I couldn't help, and I've said things like this in the past, but I've never made a video. So I wanted to kind of talk about that because I think it's critical that we right now recognize the danger that is imminent if we don't stop this trend towards authoritarianism, fascism, and a consolidation of power in one of the most powerful countries in the world, with the most powerful military built on over countless decades. If someone who could replicate or reposition Hitler from a starving, desolate country that was devastated by economic turmoil, and were to place him into one of the most powerful empires ever built in human history, with nuclear weapons and a military that vast outnumbers any other that we can conceive of, and God knows what Hitler could have done. Well, if we find the parallels between the rise of power of Hitler and the rise of power of Trump, we can definitely draw some parallels that would lead to some pretty scary conclusions. Specifically, Hitler didn't seize power overnight. It took years of dismantling institutions, silencing dissent, and masking his most extreme beliefs until it was too late to resist it. If we look at those history, it wasn't readily apparent that he was going to achieve his extreme ends, and the extreme ends were muted until he could have power to execute on them. So we can't expect that the words that Trump openly declares right now are the full extent of his intentions and his aspirations for consolidating further power. If given the opportunity, I guarantee you Trump would take a third term. He said as much in many different instances. Along the way, Hitler, he used familiar tactics to grow and protect his power that we see Trump using right now. And I want to illustrate some of those for you. Scapegoating. We all know this. Hitler blamed Jews for Germany's economic collapse. Well, Trump has been blaming immigrants, refugees, and minority groups for all of America's problems. He's even looked at his closest allies and used us as scapegoats as to why they're not more successful, or how we're taking advantage. And I'm a Canadian, so you can see how that is upsetting, because we fought with them in the World War and many wars. But anyways, othering. Hitler defined who was a real German. Trump has implied certain Americans are less legitimate if they disagree with him or come from the wrong place. the shithole countries comment, different cultures, religions, races, colors, all of these things have been his othering. Fear-mongering. Hitler warned of fabricated threats to justify his crackdowns. Well, Trump is doing the same thing. He's fabricating immigrants and refugees as rapists, killers. They're eating our dogs and cats. Like, there is no evidence to this, and yet he uses it to instill fear. Trump has painted all his political opponents and migrants as existential dangers to the very country and the fabric that you live, when in all matters of fact, it is not true. In fact, immigrants represent a smaller proportion of the criminality in the U.S. than U.S. citizens themselves as a percentage. Disinformation. Hitler's propaganda machine spread lies until truth itself was suspect. Does that sound familiar? Trump has pushed falsehoods about elections, the press, and public institutions. The fake media is just a way of him to cast doubt on anyone trying to report truth and fact, and ask questions, and hold him and his institution and his government accountable for their words and actions. And we can see this in initially them talking about wanting to promote free speech, but then turning around the moment they have the power and dismantling it in every possible way, by firing government employees that are not partisan, by changing judges that are going to be partisan in his favor, by politicizing the Supreme Court. These are, we've already seen the Senate and Congress extremely partisan, but no, we've never seen a Supreme Court as partisan as today. Undermining institutions. Hitler dismantled independent courts and free press. Trump has repeatedly attacked judges, journalists, and elected officials who oppose him. So if guess, Stephen Colbert's show getting canceled because his network wanting to align with another network or merge was in Trump's hands, because he controlled the government institutions that could destroy that merger. And so that media organization decided to cancel a show that was speaking ill will, or speaking truth to power, really, against Trump. And it's a comedy show too. But my point is that he will stop at nothing to dismantle dissent and accountability. Cult of personality. Hitler demanded loyalty to himself above all, and Trump has clearly framed loyalty to him as loyalty to the nation. Targeted repression. Hitler removed opposition leaders through arrests and intimidation. Trump has sought to punish political enemies through legal and political means. Any Republicans who stood up against him, he would put other Republicans in their ridings to try to get rid of them out of his own party. He has no loyalty to anyone but himself. us versus them rhetoric. Hitler cast politics as a battle for survival against an enemy within, and Trump has described fellow Americans as threats to his or our way of life without justification, but simply because that was expedient for his consolidation of power. History warns us that these patterns erode democracy slowly, and those who help build that machine of division often become its victims. It's important you understand what that means. The people that helped Hitler rise to power did not benefit from when he received the power. In fact, the very minorities that supported him ended up being some of the first he would send to concentration camps. He used the LGBT community to get into power, and then immediately, once he had the power, he would put them into concentration camps. He hated everyone who was not the Aryan race, but he didn't expose those beliefs fully during his speeches to the masses, because he knew he needed to consolidate power first. So if you're supporting Trump and you're poor, you think that he's working for you to build a better life, recognize that people like Trump are using you. Even the very people, the Aryan race, as Hitler would call them, who supported him throughout the war, who gave their sons and their fathers to die in battle, they were shot in the streets if they were hid in their basement during the last months of the war, because he believed that families should be fighting to the last man. If you stayed alive, you were a traitor. So even his own supporters extreme supporters did not get relief from the vengeance and the level of betrayal that people who are only self-interested like Trump will ever be able to convey. But the important component of this video is that we're not powerless. We can rehumanize our interactions. Looking online, looking at family gatherings and communications and flags in the streets about hating politicians, about hating liberals, conservatives, Democrats, Republicans. That whole concept of hating others with an alternative opinion or strategy on how we can move forward to make a better life for society, that's what is the bedrock. It's the foundation of building these types of governments that can be devastating, because they use that against you. They want you to hate each other. They want you to divide so that you stop paying attention to the policy that impacts your life and the quality of life and your ability to grow as a person and to prosper and to raise your kids and to afford your housing. We need to be collaborative. Democracy is about finding the middle ground. It's not about extremes. It's not about my way or the highway. Remembering that behind every opinion is a person like us who wants safety, dignity, and opportunity. We can be resilient against fear and division by speaking truth over outrage, listening before judging, and finding common purpose. We all want the same core things: a safe home, a better future for our children, and the freedom to live with dignity. Every single human, regardless of race, religion, ethnicity, nationality, and so on, we're all looking for this similar level of opportunity for prosperity, opportunity for growth, opportunity to raise our kids in peace, and to have a life worth living and to find purpose and meaning. Those are important parts of what it is to be a human being. And if you look at like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the further down we go down in respect of being able to provide the basic necessities of life and the basic paths to prosperity. If there are no paths to prosperity, then you will develop armies of people who are fearful and angry, and that's how people become terrorists, when they have no other way. And I'm not defending that, and I know that's probably gonna be the first thing people go to. What I'm suggesting is that humans are fighting for the same thing, and when they don't see a path forward, like a cornered dog or wolf or a raccoon, if their only option, if they don't see another path away from the danger, they have no choice but to fight it. And if you don't have a good education system, you don't know how to find other paths as well. So, there's plenty of government institutions and programs that are available to people, but they don't even know exist. Education is a core principle behind bringing a population and a democracy and having a vibrant democracy. And by limiting what we teach and limiting discourse and silencing opinions, that's where the cookie starts to crumble and the foundation of a democracy begins to erode. We all want the same core things: a safe home, a better future for our children, and freedom to live with dignity. We don't have to take from others to find happiness. We can disagree without dehumanizing, debate without destroying, and keep our democracy strong by standing for principles, not personalities. I really hope that people start to recognize that by demonizing people, by isolating and dividing people into groups, as opposed to understanding that we're all human beings trying to find prosperity, is the very thing that limits our ability to get to that prosperity. We are more than the sum of our parts. As a business person, I know this. If I work with people and we're all working in the same direction, if we all see benefit in our mutual success, then we work harder and we can produce more than we can produce individually. The adage of 1 + 1 = 3 instead of 1 + 1 = 2 or 1.8. The idea is that working together, like in production, International trade is a perfect example of that. By creating tariffs, you divide the ability for us to create efficiencies and prosperity, to produce more food of any specific type, to produce more machines, healthcare, roads, all of these things. We need to learn how to work together, and tariffs is tearing that apart. And I really hope that we find grounding in the idea that just because what we believe to be a broken system in the world that we are in now, because we're not seeing the successes, it's, you know, there's a lot of different ways people can parse and blame, but at the end of the day, I think it's important that we understand that there are some factors that might be trying to tear us apart, but you're not powerless just because you don't have money. If you educate yourself and you do your best to confront those who spread lies and disinformation or are ignorant to certain facts, obviously we have to be compassionate. We can't demonize them. Everyone's ignorant in way more ways than they're not. But I do think that it's going to take everyone's effort to change the foundation that these fascists and dictators and personalities and egotistical personalities try to leverage as fuel for the engine that is the destruction of our democracy. I hope you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making it. I'm very passionate about this stuff, and I feel like there's a lot we need to learn and a lot we need to change. We need to learn from history, so like and subscribe.